What's that in your
What's up?
camera?
What's up, Kevin? Huh?
What's that in your camera? Footprint?
Yeah, it's my footprint.
All right. Okay, so we're live right now. So
And we are live.
Hello, my ninjas. How are y'all today?
hello.
No?
Well,
Well,
say hi to Sharon and first is Squatchholic in here right now?
Yes.
yes, she is.
Okay.
She
All
is.
right. So keep your eye out, Squatchaholic.
Right.
Oops.
Right. So, we made it 1 year.
1 year, I couldn't believe it. I never thought we'd have this many subscribers, and never thought I would have Cliff on here. Anyway, ever.
Milestones, my friend.
That's right.
Milestones. You
Baby
know?
steps. Yeah. So, all right. Well, anyway, we're going to talk about your museum. I'm very interested in the museum because I hear there's some stuff in your museum that's a lot of museums don't have, right? Like you're hands-on, right? And you're attracting more of the younger generation, or?
Well, I don't know if it's more or not, but it's because everybody's 10 years old at heart, I think is the thing. I was an elementary school teacher before finding Bigfoot grabbed me, obviously. And I spent 14 years in the classroom doing that, mostly teaching 10-year-olds. And I think that if you can entertain 30 10-year-olds for 181 days a year and be okay with it, like the adults are easy. So our museum has, to my knowledge, the largest public display of Bigfoot artifacts and evidence available anywhere. Right. A lot of it's on the walls, a lot of it's in the collection, but we have a ton of stuff. It's a rather small museum. I don't know how many square feet it is, but it used to be an old motorcycle garage. So we have the high ceilings and the cement floors and everything. And that's the display hall, of course. We have a gift shop as well as an online shop if anybody's interested in some of the stuff we have for sale on there. But yeah, I think it's worth a visit because I'm basically catering to myself. When I do things, I do it to my satisfaction. And luckily, most other people tend to agree with, what I think is good. So, try to please yourself, I suppose, So I made the museum that I wish that I had seen before. So,
right.
Yeah, there's other great ones out there. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Lauren Coleman's stuff in Maine is fantastic. I've been to Dave Becerra and Melinda's shop out in Georgia, Blue Ridge, Georgia. I think it's called Expedition Bigfoot. I've been out there, and it's great. But this is my take on the Bigfoot Museum. They all have their own take, their own flavor, their own. Mike Ruggs Museum is another one I've been to. The Willow Creek Museum in Northern California as well. I've been to all those museums, and there's a few others I'm trying to get to, like the Somerset one, for example. We all have our own take on it. Each one has its own personality, and I've injected a lot of my own personality into this museum. So it's something I'm rather proud of.
Wow. How long did it take you to get that museum going? And, how much time did it take?
Long time. I mean, I budgeted for 5 months. It took me 10. So it wasn't a pleasant experience by any means, but getting it going. But now that it's up and running and, we're surviving, because we've only been open fully since a year ago, last October. And, look back at this year, it's been a dumpster fire, right? And between shutting down for COVID for 3 months, I shut down for a week and a half in September and had to evacuate the building because of fires.
Wow.
The wildfires and stuff because of the global warming issues and climate change and things. So it's been just a brutal year. I mean, at the end of the year, just for fun, if you want to call it that, I ran the numbers and not including weekends, we were closed for 27% of our very first year in business. 27% of the year in our first year of business, we had to be shut down, not including weekends. So it's been a brutal kick me in the teeth sort of year. But like I said, man, we're surviving. And if we can survive this economic climate, perhaps every other year will be okay. We'll see. I'll never be rich, man, but I love the job. I love the educational opportunities it's giving me to educate the public on the subject, and to dispel a lot of the misunderstandings in the subject. And it's given me fresh reports. We probably get a fresh report in here, like the last day or two, once a month or something. We got a lot of old stuff. We've been seeing patterns develop in our local woods. Great contacts. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. So
Well, it sounds like you're rich in that aspect.
I am. My bills are paid. My bills are paid.
Yeah.
There's food on the table, and I've got a job that I enjoy going to every day. So
and
I'm
you got
wealthy
good health
in that way.
Yeah,
I'm
That's
wealthy
good.
in that way, just like not monetarily, but I never have been monetarily wealthy. I've always been a teacher. I've always been a teacher. And teachers are the unsung heroes of the planet, who get all the blame and none of the credit for everything the politicians do. So I've never been rich. I've always had enough. And one of the camera guys on Finding Bigfoot, a real good dude named Dana, he was with us for most of the episodes. He told me once, very beautiful words of wisdom: you can only make two amounts of money, enough or not enough. And he says, like some of the richest people I ever met don't make enough.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Yeah, that's crazy. So
that's crazy.
And your museum, you're still in Oregon, right?
Yes, sir. I live outside of a little town called Sandy, Oregon, which is about 45 minutes from Portland, downtown Portland or something. So. And
your museum is located in the same area?
My museum's located in the same area, but it's a little closer to town. It's in a little place called Boring, Oregon. Yeah, the town's name is Boring. We're the sister city of Dull, Scotland, legitimately. And I'd like to think that we're the most exciting thing in Boring, although every August they do have an ice cream social in a park. So I don't know. So we're definitely in the top 3 or 4 most exciting things in Boring, I think. So
wonderful.
Yeah,
wonderful. Are you bringing schools in for field trips and everything like that?
Well, the COVID situation kind of makes it a little hard, but we have, before COVID hit, we did have some field trips in here. Afterwards, when things started opening up a little bit more, we had some people from the Tracker School, like a local outdoors school. They came in here. So yeah, we do group discounts and all that sort of stuff as well. One of the things on my never-ending to-do list is using my teacher chops, dusting those off, and getting some sort of leveled curriculum going, so I can pass out to the teachers who do bring their classes to the museum. And so they would have follow-up activities on Sasquatch stuff that would be educational, not just about the animals either, but also other aspects. Because one of my strengths as a teacher was always been teaching cross curricularly, where you teach reading and throw in math and some social sciences in as well, that kind of thing, like teaching more than one subject at the same time.
Yeah, that way they're not bored.
Well, yeah, that's Bigfoot stuff. It's Bigfoot stuff, and not a whole lot of kids are bored in my classroom. So
that's right. Now, don't you have something that's more hands-on where you can push buttons in your museum where it'll vocalize like Bigfoots or? Well,
what we have right now, with the couple interactive things we have a nice thermal imaging display where I use one of my old thermal imagers, and so the people and the kids and the adults could see themselves on thermal imaging to see what that would actually look like. And of course, I've paired that up with the Stacy Brown thermal footage from Florida. Stacy's a friend of mine, and his father got that footage in I think 2012, and I did the analysis of it. So as a thank you, Stacy's allowing me to show that video here in the museum, which is really nice of him.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then we also have a pressure pad. We have a really nice model, probably the most realistic Sasquatch model I've ever seen, made by this genius named Bo Bruns, who runs Unit 70 Studios in Columbus, Ohio. He makes animatronics for professional haunted houses and stuff like that. Really amazing work. Wow. We have a pressure pad. So when people stand on the pressure pad, it whoops and knocks at them. And then 1 out of every 4 or 5 times, it does a bluff charge and scares the hell out of 3-year-olds.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Might scare me too. That's cool. What about your go ahead.
I wish we had people in places like this that you're creating when I was growing up. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think obviously over time and stuff, Bigfoot has become more and more accepted in households, which is good. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. And people are often surprised when they come through the door, and because some of them recognize me if I'm wearing, even if I'm wearing a mask, because we gotta wear masks, So the people come in the door and they look at me and they go, "Oh my God, you're here! What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I own it." So but why are you here? It's because I own it, and that's what you do when you own a business. You work at it, And so I think I'm probably on display here as well. I think to some degree, so you can interact with Cliff. Cliff's an interactive display in the North American Bigfoot.
That's cool.
Well, you're definitely an icon on the Bigfoot topic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
A lot of people look up to me, and I appreciate that, but I don't see it that way. I just see myself as a Bigfoot nerd that got lucky. That I guess did enough good work in the beginning days to draw attention of some people who put me in a better position. But I'm just a Bigfoot learner. I'm not an expert. I'm a learner like everybody else. I've got my own models, my own ideas. I base mine on data. A lot of people don't. A lot of people base their things on belief, which is a waste of time. But whatever, as long as it makes them happy, I don't care.
Yeah, and that makes you the way you are. And that makes you, because you wouldn't be out here with us if you didn't know about that. You seem genuine to me. So
yeah, I mean, the people what you see on camera, unless you're an actor, legit actor, and there's some actors out there for sure, but unless you're an actor, the TV doesn't change who you are. It just kind of amplifies it in some ways, and like one of the critics of the show one time called me an earnest nerd. I said, yeah, that actually works. That's exactly what I am. I'm working really hard in earnest, and I'm a total nerd on the subject. You look at Moneymaker. Moneymaker rubs people the wrong ways sometimes because he has such a strong personality, but that's really him. And he's a delightful, smart guy. Like he's not bad to be around, but like if he's just got opinions, and he's that type of personality that he radiates that. And a lot of people don't like that because they're probably like that too. And you can't have two things like that in the same room. It rubs the wrong way, Yeah, but people don't tend to like themselves. And so they see that themselves in other people, and they don't like that aspect about themselves. And they don't like Matt or me or Bobo or whoever because of it. Bobo, he's Bobo. I mean, unapologetically Bobo. He slept on my couch last night. Well, he slept in the extra bedroom last night because I learned the night before at 11:30 or midnight that he was coming over. So it's just one of those things. Like I get a call from Bobes and, hey Cliff, Dan, I'm in Salem, man. I need a place to crash tonight. I said, yeah, man, sure. When are you going to be here? Oh, I don't know, hour and a half. I go, oh, all right. Which I don't mind. But Melissa's had to adjust to that a little bit about the elasticity of timeline with my friends, And then Renee, she's just doing what she does. So you kind of get a gist of who we are on the show. So it's just a gist, though. It's just a little slice. You can't nail me down, and you certainly can't nail Bobo or Matt or Renee down. People think they know us, but they only know a little bit of us. So
just whatever.
Right. It's not until you actually get to spend time with somebody in person and talk to them personally, and that you really get to know people and stuff like that. So yeah. So this is a question we ask everybody. I guess we're gonna go back a long time for you on this question. What got you into the topic of Bigfoot?
Well, I've always been eccentric and weird. I mean, even when I was a little kid, I remember I was born in 1970. So I grew up in the 1970s watching In Search Of and all the early schlockumentaries, Boggy Creek and all that jazz, But I've always had interests in eccentric interests, interest in unusual things, because I was that smart nerd in class. At school was easy. So I had free time, I'd finish my work fast and get a chance to read books and, library stuff. And so I remember being very young, looking up Bigfoot books in the library and that sort of thing. But I remember I've always had these other strange crystal skulls in Atlantis and, just fun ideas. Not that I even thought that they were real necessarily, but fun ideas, UFOs, all the weird stuff, basically.
Yeah.
But when I was I never really took it seriously per se until I was in college, when I ran across a couple different books, Man Like Monsters on Trial, the Help in a Names book. That was a compilation of the papers presented at the 1978 conference in BC. And also The Scientist Looks at the Sasquatch, co-authored, or at least co-edited by Markotic and Sprague, or is it Krantz? I'd have to go back and look. But those two books were very influential upon me, because that's when I realized that real scientists were doing real science on the subject. Whether it was, the physical anthropologists or the cultural anthropologists and all that sort of stuff. So, and then I realized, well, this is an opportunity for an amateur scientist like myself to participate and do some good, because the academics weren't pulling their weight. They weren't doing their responsibilities, in my opinion. And I've always been an amateur scientist. I was an amateur astronomer. I still am. I got a nice telescope that I break out every once in a while. And I understood that through amateur astronomy, that the amateur scientists have a really important role to play. Like in amateur astronomy, for example, in astronomy, the amateurs are the ones who discover the vast majority of comets. The vast majority, because professionals have to write grants and telescope time is so valuable and rare for them. And so, but the amateurs are the ones who just have a cool telescope and they're out looking, scanning the horizon for things that shouldn't be there. So the amateurs make huge contributions to astronomy every single year. And I thought that the Sasquatch thing was another perfect opportunity for that, because since the academics weren't really doing much, some of them were doing great work. Krantz at the time, for example, Bindernagel was behind the scenes at the time. Jeff was just starting out in like the 90s, although he has had an interest. Meldrum has had an interest for a long time, of course, but he was starting to stick his head out of the hole, so to speak, academically and do some Bigfoot work. But this is an opportunity for an amateur who loves science, who is a huge science advocate and an educator on top of it, to do some good. So that's how I really got into that. So,
wow, that's awesome. Now you get in. How'd you get the role in the finding Bigfoot to do the cast things?
Well, I think at the time I was I had a blog, basically, and I was just writing about my report, doing my own Bigfoot stuff, and you can call it research if you want, but doing my own Bigfoot thing and publishing about it and stuff. I did this little thing. I was on the sidelines with that Bob Saget show for a little bit, and when Bobo took Bob Saget Bigfooting back in the day, and at some point I got a call from Discovery Networks who said, "Hey, we're doing this thing. Would you be interested?" And I go, "Yeah, maybe." So I had to send in like a test roll, I guess, like a sizzle reel of some stuff of me on camera, and I'd already been filming a couple things for my YouTube page and all that sort of stuff. And I guess they liked me, I think they pulled Matt in because the group and his over-the-top personality. They pulled Bobo in because he's Bobo. I mean, look at the guy. And they liked me for some reason. They put me in front of test groups and whatever else. And I guess the focus groups liked me. So,
wow. And how many casts do you have now?
Oh, back the footprint casts. Oh,
Yeah.
I thought you were asking about how I became a cast member on Finding Bigfoot.
No, that's okay. That's good. I like that too. But I wanted to know.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I misunderstood. When you said cast, that has more than one meaning in my life. I'm sorry about that.
I know. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm with you, Cliff. That's exactly what I thought he was referring to too.
Okay.
We're all good. We're all
Either
good.
way, we got good information. I'm good with it.
Well, there's one less question you have to ask now. That's perfect. So.
All right.
No, but if you're asking about my footprint cast collection,
yes.
God, that must have been. It was, I remember early days of the internet. It had to be like 94 or something like that, 95 maybe. I'm not sure. My brother had the internet, and I didn't know what in the world that was yet. I was over at my brother's house, and he said, "Yeah, have you heard this thing?" And it's like, "Look at this," and it was like, "Whoa, what in the?" So you can look up anything, and he goes, "Yeah, anything at all." At that point, my nose is already pretty deep in the Bigfoot books, because I was digging through the college library for these books in 93 and 94, basically. That was the time frame for my awakening in Bigfoot. And so around this time, I said, you can look up anything you want, and there's going to be stuff there. It's, yeah, anything at all. It's weird, like, really. So I said, well, look up Bigfoot. And then I think it was the Bigfoot Research Project, Peter Burns' thing out here, like the second incarnation of it. They actually had a website. And I was like, what? And I we looked around a little bit more, and it turns out, and at that time, excuse me, one of Dr. Krantz's graduate students, I think it was Ira Walters, if I remember right. I think Ira's a man, but it might be a woman. I think Ira's a man, but whoever this person is, Walters is the last name, was selling copies from Krantz's collection with Krantz's permission. And so well, I'm interested in that. I'd love to get it. Then I was broke. I couldn't afford it. $15-20 was a big purchase for me back in 94, but I managed to scrounge up $20 and $25 maybe. And I bought a knuckle print from Dr. Krantz, and I still have it. It's in my collection. It's first generation. It's really cool. And then I later on I bought a patty cast from Dr. Krantz as well. So I have that one, and I wish. I mean, looking back now, I wish I had gone down the list and just bought one and everything, but I couldn't afford it, of course, because there's still one or two casts that Krantz put out there that I have not been able to track down yet. So, man. Yeah. But I'm sure I can get them. I just have to work harder. But there's so many other things coming in. I just don't have time to focus on one or two obscure casts, So
No.
In your travels, go ahead.
We know that you're a very busy person and stuff, and obviously you've got your museum and everything going on and stuff like that. Obviously, you've spent a lot of time out in the woods. You reside in Oregon, and well, it is nothing but woods.
I live in the woods. Yeah.
Right. You live in the woods. What was your most memorable experience that you think was attributed by?
I'm not good with superlatives like that. Like the most, the best, the favorite. Those are really difficult for me because narrowing them down is hard. And like what's the best this? So well, that kind of slights everything else except for that one thing. I mean, so there's a number of things, and it's not your question. That's a very reasonable question. I'm just a very unreasonable man because I don't think like that. But like, because I know what you're going for, but when the first thing that jumps out to my mind is like, oh yeah, I remember crashing in a hot air balloon with Bobo, but that's not what you're asking. You're asking about Bigfoot stuff and my most memorable stuff. Like, okay, well, I saw Black Panther once. That was cool on the show. The camera, we were driving back at like 2:30 or 3 in the morning in Illinois. Saw Black Panther. Saw Sasquatch once on the show. That was cool. It was through a thermal imager, but it's not the best sighting. But I'm pretty sure that's exactly what it was. Vocalizations from real close range. I remember twice using the same technique in 2 different locations and getting positive results both times. That's really encouraging because again, I'm a nerd and I'd like to know what works and what doesn't. I remember seeing my wife for the first time because she was a production assistant on the show, and she showed up and came out to call time, and I went, "Who's that?" And then I eventually convinced her to marry me. So that's a big deal too. I remember seeing my dog for the first time because Tyler Bounds, who was our camping technician on the show and a great Bigfooter and a good friend, he found my dog in the woods tied to a tree by a leash 10 inches long, saved her life. And I remember seeing her for the first. I mean, there's so many things. So finding Bigfoot was 9 years of some of the best and worst experiences of my life. So to narrow it down to one thing, that'd be hard to do. For like, if you said like, "Hey, the Rhode Island episode, what was your favorite thing about?" Then I might be able to talk about that. But like 9 years of the most insane experience.
I would love to go where you went in those 9 years. Like
sometimes you would have, sometimes you would have, and sometimes you wouldn't have. Yeah. Well, like that anywhere, but you went like to China, right? In Asia. Or, yeah. Well, yeah, we went to China, Asia several times. So in the Asian countries we were in were China and Indonesia and Vietnam and Nepal. Yeah, that's cool. Those are the countries we went to in Asia. When you went to Nepal, did they give you oxygen when you're up there? Did you guys get kind of? No, you didn't. No, you don't need it. No, I mean, no, you don't need it. You have to be careful about altitude sickness a little bit. I think that we were at about 8,000 or 9,000 feet, like where we base camped for 2 weeks, or almost 2 weeks. We flew into Kathmandu, filmed in town and that sort of stuff. Went to the Yeti sites and stuff like the historic Yeti Nepalese sort of where the mountaineers go hang out and drink after their treks and stuff. So we did some shots in there, and then we spent 3 days in the airport because we couldn't get out of the Kathmandu airport because of the weather. And so we eventually helicoptered up to the location and stayed there for over a week, maybe 8 days, 9 days at the base camp up at 8,000 or 9,000 foot level. And there are no roads, everything that is there is either helicoptered in or hiked in, basically. So there's no roads, no electricity, and all that sort of stuff. So that was a pretty interesting, I would say eye-opening, but I was also aware of what third world countries are kind of like, having been to Indonesia and whatever else. So it gives you a certain appreciation of North America in general, about how good we have it and what babies we are when we lose any of it. Americans in particular, they're just such babies about stuff. Because it's like, oh no, don't slightly inconvenience me. Well, what about these people, man? They're walking a half mile to get a bucket of water and stuff. Like grow up a little bit, Like it shows you how good we have it and how much gratitude we should be showing, or we could be showing every day for what we do have, compared to how so many other people in the world live. Yeah, we're a bit spoiled. Here's this typical question for you. What do you think of the Sasquatch?
What do you think?
He's all right. I mean, what I don't understand the question. Like, what do you mean? Like, what do I think of the Sasquatch? I'm not quite sure what angle. Yeah, maybe they can type up again. Like, what angle do you want me to come at? Like, because that's such a broad question.
He's only 14 years old, so he's not sure. I think
Oh, a 14-year-old. So yeah. So what do I think? But if he'd like to clarify, I will be happy to clarify for it. And maybe because I may not be addressing what he wants to know. Okay, I'll say it like that. What do I think that Sasquatches are really interesting. First of all, I think they've certainly got me puzzled about a lot of stuff. But it's a fairly, frankly, boring species. It's a perfectly normal species of animal. It's probably some sort of relict population from some offshoot of the hominin line, is my guess. A lot of people think Gigantopithecus blacki is a good candidate. What do I think the Sasquatch is? There you go. Now I got it.
Right.
Well, Sasquatches are an unknown species of primate, almost certainly a hominin. Or pongid, maybe. See, a lot of people go with the Gigantopithecus idea, and Gigantopithecus now we know is firmly in the line between Schipopithecus and orangutans. So the pongid line, maybe. We don't really know enough about Gigantopithecus to say much. We know that they existed. We have a few jaws, a couple hundred teeth. That's really about it. Nothing else. We don't have any skulls. We don't have any vertebrae. We don't have any ribs. We don't have any femurs. We don't have any pelvis. We don't have any other bones except for jaws and teeth. And you can only learn so much about an animal from that. So we don't know that much about gigantos. Maybe they are the predecessor to Sasquatch, but we just don't know. I think there's other options that should be looked at. Gordon Strassenberg in the early 1970s, he was postulating that perhaps Sasquatches are some sort of robust Australopithecine. And I am much more on that board, on that train, I suppose. In fact, I think that they're probably Paranthropus or some other robust Australopithecine. There's, I think, 3 or 4 different species of Paranthropus, which are the Australopithecus robustus and all that sort of stuff. I think that those are most likely, a very good candidate. Maybe not most likely, but those are a very good candidate for the predecessor of a Sasquatch. In which case, what we're looking at now is a relict population of the ancestors of that. So a small, surviving, persisting population of hominin, which is a fancy word for human ancestors and the offshoots of that line, since humans and chimpanzees last shared a common ancestor between 6 and 8 million years ago.
Wow. Next question here. You experienced any other cryptids besides Bigfoot? If so,
Yeah, I have actually. Yeah. And when we're finding Bigfoot in Illinois, we're driving back to the hotel after our first night investigation. It's usually we stay in hotels because everybody else, like once we get home from like at 3 or 4 in the morning, cast members like Bobo and Matt and Renee and I, we go to bed. But everybody else has to stay up for the next hour and a half, 2 hours and do things. The sound guy has to upload all of his sound files and get those emailed off or put on a hard drive somewhere. They have to go through dailies. They have to look at what actually happened, what happened today versus what they thought was going to happen today, and then change the story because there's not a script that we follow, but when we go out and film things, they look at what we did and then write the script. Does that make sense? It's kind of backwards of what most people think it is. They don't tell us what to say. They never have. They don't tell us what to do. I mean, they set up circumstances and throw us into it and see what happens. Basically, is how it works most of the time. So after a day of shooting, and they may say that like Cliff goes and visits a guy who has his footprint cast and blah blah blah, and they may say that Cliff loves the cast or whatever, and he thinks it's authentic, but they don't tell me that. And at the end of the day, I go see this cast and I think it's nonsense. And I say, no, this isn't a real cast. And here's why. Then at the end of the day, then the story producer has to go and compare what they thought might happen to compare to what did happen. And then they have another hour of work to do, Yeah. So it's kind of a grueling process and stuff. But now I forgot the question. Where was I going with this? I had a point. You know what the question was?
Yeah. Let me get it back up here.
Other cryptids. My mistake. Yeah. So we're driving home. We're driving home like at 2:30 in the morning or something like that. I don't remember. It was a long time ago, but late. It was after a night investigation. We got enough for a story. We had town hall the next day, so we had to get back earlier rather than later. We couldn't be like a 6 a.m. sort of thing, and we've done plenty of those. Driving back through Illinois, on the side, I'm in the passenger seat. Moneymaker's driving the cast car. The cast goes all together, and we're in a caravan, about 4. Maybe 5 vehicles or something like that. And then up ahead of me on the right-hand side on the edge of the headlights, I thought I see what I think is a a German Shepherd, like kind of trotting towards the road, but it's not trotting. It's like slinking. Oh, look at that. Isn't that interesting? Dark gray sort of thing. And as we get closer, it turns, and then I see it has a long wavy tail, and it has ears, and it doesn't have a big muzzle or anything. It was basically a mountain lion is what it was, but it was a black mountain lion. It was a dark charcoal gray mountain lion. I could see that the tips of the ears had blacker tips, and the tip of the tail had black on it as well. It was clearly a mountain lion. It was a melanistic mountain lion. Melanism is like the opposite of albinism. It's like being an albino, in other words. The opposite of that is when you have so much melanin in you, like it tints the hair and everything. So it's all dark colored. That's what melanism is. So I saw a melanistic mountain lion on Finding Bigfoot. That was cool. We're at Kinzu Reservoir, and there's supposedly a lake monster in there. And I saw something that might have been that. I'm not sure, while filming on Kinzu Reservoir in Pennsylvania. Something caught our eye 200 yards off the bow of the boat, because we're in that speedboat going to this spot to go film something. And what I saw were carp. I think they were carp, at least. They're really big fish, probably about 3 feet long, like 2.5, 3 feet long. These fish going jumping out of the water ahead of this huge wake that was being pushed by something under the water. It looked like something very large was going underwater and pushing this wake up, and then these fish were jumping out in front of it. And when fish do that, it's generally a panic sort of thing because they're being hunted from down below. But whatever this was very large. Or if it was a thing in the water, it was very large because it was pushing a big old mound of water. And I saw it from a great distance, and then 200 yards or more, 250 yards maybe. And then the fish that were trying to escape this thing were also very large. They had to be at least 2 or 3 feet long. They're large. So I think they're big old carp. So I've seen those cryptid things, if I'm even right about, especially that I don't know. But
I hate to be swimming at that point.
yeah, it's cold anyway. So yeah.
Did you have a question, Kevin, or no? Look like you're about to talk. Okay. We have another question here.
No, I live in Los Angeles right now. It's really frustrating me. I've got a car revving its engine over here. I've got a dog barking over there. I've got people doing laundry behind me, and I'm just staying on mute.
Yeah. Well, none of it's bleeding through. You sound good.
Yeah. So what do you think about the climate change? Because of the climate changes maybe pushing it closer? Or?
I don't think climate change will certainly affect all of us, every living thing on the planet, in some way or another. That's what climate is. It's not weather, it's climate. It's different. And the fires are a good example. Like I had to close the museum for a week and a half because of fires this past September, something like that, a week or so, for the fires. And these fires are a direct result of climate change, frankly, because we've been seeing climate change for a long time, and certainly it would be happening with or without humans. But I think it's the science is clear. We're speeding things up here, and we're not doing a damn thing to fix it either. So far, very, very little. But like desertification of Africa has been going on for a long time. Like Sahara used to be a green pasture land, and before that, it was actually woods. If you go back far enough, and that's where our earliest ancestors roamed. The pasture lands in particular. So like climate change has been happening for a long time. We are coming out of an ice age, but humans are speeding things up with our pollution and all that sort of stuff. So as things start burning away and we lose some habitat, the Sasquatches we're going to have to adjust to some degree, but I don't think that necessarily brings them closer because there's plenty of pockets that didn't burn. The fires were here, just like locally, the fires. We're out by Colton and Malala and Estacada and all that sort of stuff, and down the Clackamas. It actually started on the Clackamas River at a place called the Riverside Campground. And it hopped 17 miles in one day. It was astonishing. And I think the fires got 8 miles from my house. So it was a little worrisome and even closer to the museum. But Sasquatches adjust. That's a good thing. I don't think there's a lot that humans can do to affect Sasquatches very much. I think that the worst thing we can do for their population is pave everything, because we tend to pave things because I don't know why, but we tend to pave things. And paving thing, and there's very few places that matters a lot because usually there's so much land. But down in Florida, for example, so much development is happening down in Florida that they might be cutting off one population of Sasquatches from another. And that would probably have some detrimental effects on their gene pool after several generations. If the inbreeding and things like that might happen. Of course, Sasquatches may not care. Over my 27 years of doing this, I've kind of come to the conclusion that Sasquatches don't really give a damn about us. They're not, I mean, they don't want to be seen by us, sure, but neither do black bears. It doesn't take a ton of intelligence. They just don't. Tom Powell told me once, and this kind of drives my point home. He told me once, Cliff, you only own your property during the day. And that kind of drove things home. So it's like, oh yeah, Sasquatches just don't care, if we're around. So they'll walk through a park. They'll walk through a golf course. They don't give a damn. They're going to go through this place anyway. Just they're going to do it when they're not seen is the thing. So maybe cutting one population off from another would have some effect. Maybe it wouldn't make any effect. Don't know. It remains to be seen. But I think that they are smart, and I think that they're adaptable. I know they're adaptable because I've seen the huge variety of habitats that they can live in from Finding Bigfoot. 100 episodes will teach you the variety of places they like to be. So they might be so adaptable that we kill ourselves and they're left over,
Pretty much.
I'm going to agree with you on this, that they just don't care about us, and they are absolutely adaptable and stuff. They change with their environment. They adapt to their environment, and humans adapt the environment to them. Yeah. So, I absolutely agree with everything you just said. So, great statement.
All right, I think Larry. Go ahead.
I have a question. What was your favorite area to go searching with a lot of activity?
Well, luckily, we're lucky. Well, we're very fortunate to have Matt on the team, because Matt has the BFRO database. I mean, I've got a lot of sighting reports. I have about 1,200 in my personal database that I've taken. That's just on file. I've probably got a few hundred more than that in my paper files. But Matt has tens of thousands. So we're very, very fortunate to be working with Matt in that way. And of course, Matt has a nationwide network of BFRO investigators too, and many of which, not all, certainly, there's a whole lot of people that are, armchair, just like everywhere else. But Matt does have a nice stable of researchers that spend a lot of time in the woods. So when we went to an area, it was almost always based on some other piece of evidence, like some film or some footprint or something that came out of there. So when we got to the location, we had the best intel, because we would call the local investigators that were most active, and they would, be usually really excited about sharing their area with us to see what we'd find in there. So we got a lot of activity almost everywhere we went because of that, because of the contacts that Matt, Bobo, and I had. With the best investigators in the country, I believe. So the activity part, I'm not going to factor into that question so much, because there was activity in most places that we went. Otherwise, we wouldn't have gone. But my favorite place to go Bigfooting is here, basically, where I live. And that's why I live here. I wasn't born here. I was born in Southern California, in Long Beach. I just had the good sense to get out, because all my hobbies were a long ways away, So my favorite place, because I'm the kind of guy that I realize, I'm 50. I've got maybe 30 years left, maybe, I'm not going to waste my time not living and not doing the coolest stuff I possibly can, because we all die, and I've always been very aware of that. So I chose to live where I vacationed, essentially. So my favorite place to go is here in the Pacific Northwest. There's some complications with Bigfooting in the Northwest, but there's a lot of advantages as well. But if I didn't choose home, it would probably be Australia, which is Australia was a tremendous opportunity to learn about the Yowies and down there, and brown jacks as well, 2 species of unknown hominoids in the same continent. And we got great activity, and I don't think, and there's a couple guys down there or a couple people down there, not just guys, of course. Women play a huge role in this field and don't get recognized enough. But there's a couple people down in Australia that do some field work, but most of them don't. Most of the Yowie investigators down there really don't get in the field, maybe, but once or twice a year, near as I can figure. So to go out there and try our North American techniques on the Australian equivalent was a really neat opportunity.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Did any of your calls help out, over there? Like,
yeah. Like I mean, the reading, you probably, a lot of you have read the Cropper book, for example, and maybe the Graham book as well. But like you read their reports, and like everybody down there is like, these are cannibals, I'll kill you, and all this other stuff. And like, turns out, no, they just seem like regular Bigfoots to me. So that was a big eye opener, is that the people who had been down there, like writing and talking and sharing stories, like they had kind of a skewed perception of these things, in my opinion. That was the big question I wanted to answer when I went down there. Is like, what are these things, Bigfoots, or are they something else? And near as I can figure out, they're Bigfoots. We did our calls, it worked, we got vocalizations back. We did knocks. I got pattern knocking back, where I would do a certain pattern, like clapping with my hands, and I'd get the same pattern back from the woods.
Wow.
Whatever that was, yelled at us, pushed trees down. It was a great expedition. It was totally awesome. Yeah, one of the highlights of the show, in my opinion.
Yeah, you have also
That's awesome.
Bigfoot and Beyond. That is our podcast.
Yeah. Bobo's in my podcast. We do that together every week. So, yeah.
And it's just a vocal. It's not like this where you can see each other, right?
No, it's not. No, you don't want to see us.
Yeah.
No.
What? All right. How long? When you guys start the podcast?
It'll be 2 years in May, I think, or something. Although we started recording before that, because we wanted to make sure that we had a stockpile of them, backlog of them before we went public. Because between our schedules, which are always jam packed with stuff, and our general elasticity with our sense of time, some might call it flakiness, but I just call it elasticity. It's kind of hard to nail either one of us down rather frequently. So we pre-record it whenever we can get together, and then we put it out every Sunday night.
That's cool. That's a good idea. Recording it all in. That way it's not live. At least
Yeah, we have an editor too. So if we talk for 2 hours, we can edit it down to 1 hour. So it's kind of nice to do that. So and remove anything stupid that we say. So
I wish I could do that.
I wish I had an editor in my everyday life. Just follow me around.
Right.
Like, oh, did I say that? Gosh darn. Pull that out, okay? And then it'll be done. It'd be good.
Editor.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you meet your wife, and is she in on this Bigfoot thing too? Of course, she helped you with the museum, right?
Yeah. I met her on the show. She was a production assistant on the show. Actually, she came on in the New York episode, and so it's like, whoa, who's that? And I tried to hang out with her as much as possible, and 2 or 3 years, I don't know how long it was, 2 or 3 years later, I guess, that I finally convinced her to come out to Portland, where I was living at the time. And then she goes, yeah. She's kind of in between jobs, and she came out, and we eventually convinced her to marry me. So, yeah. And is she interested in the Bigfoot? Yeah, sure, a little bit. But that's not her thing, and she gets barraged on social media too, like all these Bigfoot things all the time. And she goes, I feel so bad because I'm not a Bigfooter. I don't do the research. I'm interested in the subject, but not like you are. And I go, I know, but you own a museum, you're gonna have to deal with it. And she's really into horror movies, and special effects makeup is kind of her thing. You can, if you follow her on Instagram, it's Melissa Barackman. I don't know if there's a dot in between the first and last name or not, but on her Instagram post, I'm not sure. But yeah, it's all horror stuff. It's like what new ways to make burns. Like they make it look like prosthetic burns. It's like, oh look, like severed. She makes severed fingers, for things, and she tries to take jobs. Like she just picked up a job for a short film, making some sort of like amorphous, like squid tentacle monster thing. That's the kind of stuff she likes to do. That's what she's really into. Bigfoot's my thing, and she does co-own the museum with me. But at the same time, she's not that interested in Bigfoot stuff, just like I'm not super interested in special effects horror makeup, but it's cool. So it kind of goes both ways. So
yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm trying to look in the comments here to see if anybody has any questions. If you do, just put them in caps. That would help me find you a little easier. Chris, do you have any questions or anything yet? No, Kevin.
No.
Look at the other thing.
What is your favorite area around your area to go Bigfooting, so to speak?
Well, I've got a couple, honey holes, so to speak, like fishing spots, so to speak, that have been pretty reliable. But over this past year of having the museum open, we get a lot of reports in here, obviously from the local people, far more than you could ever get through any group, even the BFRO. Just so many reports coming here. I think on an average summer week, we probably get 5 or 8 reports. Which is kind of a lot. And we document them all and write them down. Is that the local ones? So our Oregon, Washington stuff, maybe a little in California, but mostly Oregon, Washington stuff. California stuff, I'll send to my contacts down there. And even this past year of doing that, several spots keep coming up again and again and again. And those are the areas I'm most interested in because they have been proven to have a long history. And in fact, it's so interesting. There's a spot out by Colton in Oregon that spot has been producing tracks since at least the 80s. And I didn't get anything this year, but the fires are going crazy this year. But in 2015, 17, 18, 19, and in the 19 and 20, like right when it turned there, we got reports all from within 2 or 3 miles of one another. That area has just been red hot for a long, long time. And that's what I'm finding out is I'm coming to the point now where I don't think Sasquatches move around a whole bunch. I think the males probably do, but the females don't. And I think that based on the evidence, and I'm an evidence-based researcher again, I don't go by my gut feeling on most things, or some things you got it, but for the most part, I don't. The evidence points to the same individuals being found in the same area over a good span of time, like 9-10 years or more. But the bigger footprints, the males, presumably, because there's a sexual dimorphism in all ape species, including humans, because we are apes. That is our biological family. The males have footprints have been found up to 60 miles distance from one another at different times of year, but with different females, different presumed females footprints being found nearby. So that implies something like an orangutan harem situation where their social structure, where the females and the young and the adolescents and stuff hang out in one particular area, while the male and their territories probably abut one another, and then the males basically move through them all doing booty calls and trying to keep other males from doing so.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I think when they find a good spot, they just hang out.
Yeah. Until the resources are depleted, then they go to the next spot. That's probably not that far away. They got it dialed in.
Right. Or maybe hunters come in and they feel threatened. They'll move on or something like that. You know what I mean? But
I'm not even sure they care about hunters so much. I'm not sure.
I think they might actually use hunters as, I don't know, a source of food. They hear
that plenty of hunters report a Sasquatch takes their kill from them.
Right. They're associating the gunshots. Okay, let's go get dinner.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And they just run in, snag it up. And the hunter comes walking up, and where is it?
Yeah,
where'd it go? So yeah, plenty of reports of hunters missing their kills for sure.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
You went to the PG site with the man himself. How was that?
Oh yeah, but that was probably my 8th trip there, though. I started going to the Patterson-Gimlin film site even before it was fully recognized as such.
With Bob, though.
Yeah, I've been there with Bob just once, I guess. I don't think twice, just once. Yeah, that was great. Riding horseback with Bob Gimlin in Bluff Creek. It's kind of a bucket list item, like everybody would have that on their list unless they're a damn fool. And then so to be able to do that with Bob Gimlin is tremendous. Although the one thing, and of course, looking back, I've been to the bottle tree spot at Boggy Creek with that dude who lived in the island with all the bottles. I've been there, and I go down the list and oh my God, I've done a lot of my bucket list items. I must be close to death, That's the way I kind of wonder about it. So I'm a little hesitant to do things now that are on my bucket list because I don't want to wipe them all off. So, but yeah, I've been to the Patterson-Gimlin site a ton of times. Yeah, certainly awesome. certainly more than a dozen. So,
wow, a lot of sightings.
Oh yeah, there are a ton of sightings in the Sisters Wilderness specifically. I don't get a lot of the Sisters stuff just because I'm up further. Sisters is a few hours south of me, but yeah, a lot of stuff happens down there. A lot of stuff, and of course, one of the earlier researchers, Barbara Wasson, was based out of that particular area. She gathered a tremendous number of reports. She was a tracker for the Forest Service. She taught tracking classes for the Forest Service, and she lived in Sisters, and so she pulled a lot of reports. And I know that because I have her collection. Her son and daughter actually contacted me for some of her archive, like asking me if I'd be interested in like housing some of the archives in the museum. And of course I jumped at it because we're not just a Bigfoot museum. I don't want to be thought of as a museum. We're actually a center, because it expands further than a museum. Like we're not just a place where you can come look at casts on the wall. We're a place that's a living, breathing research institute, essentially. We take the best information and the most recent information, go out, gather the data and bring it back and share it with the appropriate authorities. And a lot of our mission is to also find, preserve, and archive historical records. Because these casts that are sitting around in grandpa's garage or something like that he got back in the 1960s. Oh yeah, my grandpa has a Bigfoot cast. What happens when he dies? Family doesn't know what to do with it. They throw it away.
Oh,
think of all the, like, think of the archives, the research archives of people who've been thrown the stuff. Oh, it's just Bigfoot stuff. It's all nonsense. Throw it away. And a lot of stuff, especially with that first generation of Bigfooters, is going away now. And part of the whole goal here at the North American Bigfoot Center is to, again, find and preserve historical archives. And by getting the words out, people say, oh, well, I got this thing from Peter Burns' Bigfoot research thing in the Dalles. We had that trailer. And so we have some of those here in the shop. Or so, oh, I hung out with Renee Hinden and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, he actually gave me his tent from the 1976 expeditions. Oh, we've got that here in the museum too.
That's
so
cool.
Like people out there who have really cool, and they're not monetarily valuable, they're really not, but they're educationally valuable. And that's what I'm interested in. We've gotten some amazing, just fantastic artifacts in here because people wanted it to be used for educating, for education, for educating the next generation. We have Rant Mullis's wooden stompers. Like Rant Mullis is second most famous hoaxer ever, next to Ray Wallace. They knew each other and had a rivalry actually about the whole hoaxing thing. We have Rant Mullen's original wooden stompers in here that he made footprints with. So yeah, maybe some of you guys out there have like first edition newsletters from the Manimals newsletters with Jim McLaren or something like that. Like who knows? There's so much Bigfoot history that is behind us, and so much of it is being lost because people don't recognize there's a historical interest in that, and maybe they're passing away, that sort of thing, because the first generation is pretty much gone. I mean, Peter's the last one at this point, Peter Byrne. Their stuff needs to find a good home. And I guess that's my point, at a place where it'll be appreciated and, more importantly, shared and used, because the data they gathered back in the 1960s and 70s and 80s is still valid today. And it deserves something better than a trash can or a recycling bin.
Yeah, that next generation didn't know or just didn't care, enough to put it in somewhere safe.
Yeah. Very few people care in general enough, like care like I do, at least, about preserving the history. Because I'm not finding Bigfoot didn't come out of a vacuum, man. I mean, the only reason I know so much is because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, as Newton, I think, said. It's the people who came before us, and that generation is largely ignored by the present day Bigfooters, and it's a shame because those people did great work, and they should be recognized as the trailblazers, the vanguard of what we are today. But yet there's this whole generation of Bigfooters now that came into being because of finding Bigfoot. And I appreciate that, and I'm not slighting them at all. But there's decades of Bigfoot research before that, and they're completely unaware of it. Like people don't know who John Green is. They don't know like who Renee Hinden was, and they don't know that Krantz's early works and how Krantz got interested in it. They don't know they don't know Barbara. They never even heard of Barbara Wasson. They don't know who all these other people are, like Gordon Strassenberg. They've never heard of that guy. They don't know. I just go down the list. There's all these people that the present day Bigfooters are oblivious about. They have no idea who they are. They say, well, get off of YouTube. I mean, nothing personal to your show because it looks like you're on YouTube. I don't know if you are or not, but get off of YouTube and read a book. Yeah. There's so much evidence and so much work that has gone before us. Why just start now? Why start with Cliff, Bobo, Renee, and Matt? It's ridiculous. We only know so much because the people who came before us, Yeah. And those people need more attention and it's the history that makes this thing valuable, the interesting. And it's just, I guess I'm just an old man yelling at the kids to get off my lawn at this point. But it's a shame. It's a shame because I hear people say, I'm the one who figured out that there's a correlation between Sasquatch sightings and rainfall. No, you're not. John Green did that in the 1970s. You know, no one did that in the 1990s and early 2000s. Yeah, but like, no, you're not the guy to figure that out. Some people, it's like, I'm the one to just like Matt, Moneymaker once and said that he was the guy that figured out about tree knocks. No, he wasn't. He wasn't at all. He was the first guy to figure out that you can do tree knocks.
Ray Wallace, wasn't it?
No, it was Bob Titmus. Yeah, but Bob Titmus wrote about that in the late 1960s, or actually in the late 1950s. My mistake. He's funny. But anyway, yeah, that's archived. But again, know where you came from. That's important. You know what I mean? Because that way you won't look foolish. But when you say that you figure something out that we already knew for 30 years, you know?
Right.
That's one thing I've noticed and stuff throughout my adventures is exactly know where you came from. Again, like you said, you know, the new generations, oh, well, I discovered this. And it's like, well, no, you didn't. This person did back in the 60s. You know what I mean? No, exactly. Know where you came from. Know the people that were doing it. People have been doing this since, the 50s. You know, doing this research since the 50s and made big names for themselves. And, the newer generations, they're involved in the now and not in the past when they need to be looking at the past. And, I mean, that goes the same with, music even nowadays. You talk to a new generation. Oh, yeah, well, have you heard of the Eagles or whatever? Who's that? You know what I mean? It's they're icons. They paved the way for what you listen to now. Same as they paved the researchers back then paved the way for people like us today. There's a reason they teach the history of whatever subject it is in college. Like I have a degree in music. I had to learn music history since from prehistory to present. Same thing with any art class. I think I took a history of science class when I was in college as well. That stuff's important. You need to know this sort of stuff to know where you're coming from and what you can do with it.
You play guitar, right? And you played out there too. How'd that go?
Yeah. That was always fun. It's always fun to play instruments in the woods. I did a solo night out in Tillamook a couple nights ago. It was 2 or 3 nights ago. I was out there and I brought a ukulele just because it's an interesting sound. It's fun. I'm not a really good ukulele player, so I like the challenge, because it's also small and easy to cart around. So,
yeah.
Well, people label Sasquatch as monsters, and a lot of us don't label them as monsters. We think they're an ancient people. Now, have you ever had an aggressive encounter?
Well, I've been screamed at. I've had rocks thrown at me and all that sort of stuff, but that's just typical ape behavior. That's not. It could be aggressive. It could be something else. It's typical human behavior as well, because as I pointed out earlier, humans are apes. So there's not much of a difference there, And a lot of our behaviors are explainable if you study physical anthropology, like primatology in general. A lot of our behaviors are right in line with all of our cousins there, So.
Yeah, I've never had an aggressive encounter. Everything that I've experienced was pretty good, except for one where you ever heard of the infrasound?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I've written articles about it.
Yeah, I've had the infrasound before. I've heard it. It was weird.
You can't hear infrasound.
No, you can.
Then it's not infrasound. Infrasound technically is sound waves that are too low for humans to hear.
You could feel the vibration of it.
Oh, yeah, that's different, though. Feeling it is different. Yeah, but I was only taking issue with that. You said you heard it.
We had a friend that was on here that's from Louisiana that has a video, like, recorded the noise when it sounds like a train, like a woo, 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 woo. And I felt and heard that.
Okay.
It was weird.
You said something about Bigfoot, how they act like apes. Now, you remember you did an interview with a girl that had a guide dog, and then she was camping and they threw rocks at her.
Yeah, I want to say it was Colorado, if I remember right. Yeah.
Do you think because she had a handicap, they capitalized on her? Because I didn't hear any of that in any of the other shows. Never heard that before. How much rocks they thrown at her?
No, because we spoke to a lot of people who get rocks thrown at them, though. So I'm not sure if it had to do with I'm sorry, say again?
Not like as much as she had a bag full of them. Was all those the ones that they threw at her?
Yeah, I don't remember that, but I'm not doubting you. I just don't recall off the top of my head. So I may not be able to remember the details enough to address that. But I'm not so sure that maybe the Sasquatch could tell that, because Sasquatches are like everything else. They're subject to their own perceptions of things, right? And if they're not blind, they may not understand what blindness is, essentially.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when I was like 10 years old, and I was told that dogs are colorblind. I couldn't quite wrap my head around it because it was outside my own personal experience. I didn't understand about rods and cones and the cells and the retina and all that sort of stuff. I didn't understand any of that. So I just kind of put it in my own perception. And I suspect that they're a lot like that, actually, in a lot of ways. And that's why I think they hide in the dark, because there's thermal imaging videos of them hiding in the dark. I don't think that they can really understand that we don't see in the dark, because they do, So it's kind of interesting in that way.
Yeah, I used to watch a lot of ape and chimpanzees, the way they act, and when one was injured or blind or whatever different, they would capitalize on that one. And when I saw the episode, I kind of put those. It's like maybe they are kind of like them, but who knows?
Yeah, maybe they are. I don't really know. I don't think anybody.
See,
we don't know a lot. Nobody knows a lot about them. I mean, we the things that we do know are just kind of surmise, and like we build a model based on the best data that we have, and see if new evidence arises that counteracts that model. And if it does, great. That's a victory. People don't think people take so much pride, a hubris actually, in being correct about things, and it's just so backwards. One should always try to prove oneself wrong. And to see if the evidence that we find supports what we think. And if it doesn't, great. That's a wonderful opportunity to revise our hypothesis and see if we can prove ourselves wrong the next time. But a lot of people take offense at being wrong, or they think that being wrong is a bad thing. I'm glad I don't think like that, because if it wasn't for saying things that are wrong, I'd probably be quiet all the time. It's just nobody's got this nailed down yet. We all have the best versions of our models. I try to build mine off of evidence and data and what comes my way, so that's the best I can do.
Yeah. You said that a lot of times in the show too, and it's really good too that way. I like it that way. Because I don't want them to be a certain way. I just look at what the evidence says, and then see if what I think about them holds up to that, holds up to the scrutiny. Because no matter what it is, the truth can always withstand the scrutiny. As close as you want to look, it's still going to be true. Yep. Well, thank you, Cliff, for coming on. We really appreciate it. That was very awesome.
Yeah, no problem, man. Just talking squash, man. No big deal.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolute pleasure talking with you today, Cliff.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for having me on. I do appreciate it. Thanks for helping me get the word out about the museum and the podcast and all that.
Absolutely. I do a lot of traveling and stuff. My father-in-law's property in northern Idaho. We go right through Oregon all the time. And my wife was actually on the chat asking if it was open to the public.
Oh yeah, sure. We're open every day, but Tuesday, Wednesdays. Because even I get a weekend every once in a while.
Well, maybe someday you'll see this big red beard walking through the door.
I hope so. I hope so.
No. You might have to cast him and put him on the wall.
All right, cool. Thank you, Cliff, for joining us.
Yeah. All right, guys. You take it easy. You enjoy your evening. All of you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
All right.
Well, he had some very insightful things to say.
Yeah,
absolutely. I like that he is strictly just evidence based.
Yeah,
we need that. We definitely need that in the community for sure.
Yeah, when you get a chance, look at Joe Messenger.
So, absolutely. And again, like you said, we don't have this thing nailed down, and that's the point. The whole point of this whole podcast is we're all one big team. We're all out here in different areas trying different things, and someone here might have success in this state, and someone might try it over here on the other side of the continent and have success with the same thing, So, awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Go eat. I'm starving right now. I'm gonna go eat.
Me too.
All right. Well, hey, look at your messengers.
My messenger?
Yeah, look at your messenger.
Yeah.
Well,
Don't show it. Don't show it, please.
I don't even see anything yet. It didn't come up on my phone yet.
It hasn't come up on your phone. What you mean?
I don't know. I don't see anything on there yet. All right, I'm gonna pee my pants. I gotta go.
All right.
All right,
Thank you all for joining us.
Yes, have a good night, everybody. I won't be here next Sunday, so
Okay.
yeah.
All right,
Wait,
we're gonna have
I'm gonna end the broadcast. Good night, everybody. Much love.